right, good morning, everyone, and hope you had a great week. Did you enjoy the week? And hope your Saturday is starting off on a good note. We're back today for the seventh stream of the truth interviews over the last 2 months. And today we have an exciting fellow to talk to us today about the digital approach to business in Africa, and both for businesses and for governance. His name is Godswill Iwenofu. I'd just like you to just take 1 minute or 30 seconds and watch this video about Godswill. Yes, so we're back, and Godswill is gonna we're gonna start off by asking him to tell us a bit about himself. So you're welcome, and it's good to have you on the show, sir. Right. So sorry about that impromptu. So anyone, if you're joining us, we're going to be talking about digital today. I know some people like to advertise on platforms like this in the comment section. That is fine, as long as we are promoting your business. But do keep the adverts in the context of the discussion. That will be wonderful. So today we're going to be talking to Godswill, and wherever you're joining us from, just type in the comments Lagos, Accra, Maputo, Kinshasa, anywhere you're joining us from, just let us know. We're going to be talking to Godswill Iwenofu today. And just before we went live, we were talking of the fact that he's actually of Igbo extraction. And I used to, there's a saying in my place that if you go to any place and you do not have Igbos there, it's better you just leave the place. The place is not thriving. So when I first met him, I looked at the name again and again. I said, I mean, is this an Igbo name or not? I mean, but eventually it turned out that he's actually of Igbo extraction. So I'm just going to give him a few minutes to introduce himself and give the audience an highlight of who he is. Go ahead, sir.
Okay. Thank you so much. Kenneth, thank you for the work you're doing. Thank you for having me on the show. It's a pleasure to be here. And thank you to all our viewers for being here. So, Godswill Iwenofu is actually is just a common Generation Z African that envisions to be, a change to the many problems we face in the continent, and not be a problem himself. So, yeah, that is just me.
Wow, that is a very succinct introduction. So I'm typing it in the comments, a Generation Z African. I like that rendition of yourself. And I'd like you to tell us a bit more about your background. I saw the 7 questions interview, and I was quite impressed with what you had done before starting from your journey in high school. So I'd just like for us to highlight that and tell us more about your journey in entrepreneurship. I think we lost the signal a bit.
Okay.
Okay, it's coming back.
Sorry
Okay.
about that.
Yeah, sorry about that. If you could just, I was just saying that you tell us. I saw the 7 questions interview, and I was quite impressed with your history starting from high school. I just wanted you to highlight more about that. Tell us a bit more about that, your journey in entrepreneurship.
Okay. Thanks to being from an entrepreneurial, background, my mother, my aunt, majority of the others in my family are all business people. So it already instilled in me a zeal for entrepreneurship. Before I could even learn, before I even knew what entrepreneurship was. I really knew how to sell, etc. And why are you selling, what, how to talk to customers, how to do accounting. Even before we started doing accounting at school, I was taught all of those. So it's something that has always been around me as long as I can remember, as long as my memory goes back. So being in high school when it started playing out, it's that's when actually it started playing out officially, when I started moving to official business. By official, I mean registered, business, etc. Not informal, formal business. So my first business that I went into was Pestle Group. So Pestle Group was a waste management company that provided waste management services to SMEs in Johannesburg CBD. And that the opportunity there came from around during that time there was a frequency of strikes, amongst the Johannesburg picket up workers who are the city cleaners. So we saw that opportunity, and SMEs could not afford traditional waste management services. So we went in the market, um, we solved some of the problems, but however, we failed there. And mainly the reasons why we failed there was because of two things: self doubt and having patience. And yeah, and then from there, at the same year, I started an NGO, um, I mean an MPO rather, um, GIMT Foundation. So the MPO is actually quite interesting because it came out of it was given birth to in a very peculiar way. Well, it just happened that we were in an entrepreneurship event in Eastern Johannesburg. So there was a guy, Emmanuel Bonoko, was featured in Forbes 30 under 30, and we invited him to come speak at our school. And shockingly, he agreed. And it was me and my best friend, who is now my business partner, is a brother of mine, Setum Tokolo, and he agreed. And that's how GIMT Foundation was just formed. So we organized the event, went to the school management system, and etc. But being in a traditional African school, it was bad because you were matric, right? Or you were in JSS3, your final level of high school, and teachers want you to give 20 hours to your studies, and they don't want to hear about any other thing than your studies. So the event was actually the principal didn't want to approve the event, but however, just having that interest, I mean, and that vision, escalated to something even bigger. We ended up hosting a lot of workshops for schools, not actually for people who need it the most, which are people in the rural settlements of South Africa. And luckily, one of the schools we hosted, Magogo Secondary Schools, based in Bihale, in Limpopo, South Africa. We hosted the school, our workshop at, were the highest in the whole district. So to show the impact that what we do, what we are doing brought to them, and that has motivated us to do more. So yeah, that is just the ventures from high school. Then after high school, we failed a bit at different things, and eventually we stumbled upon Hyratica Insights, which is something which is so moving, and currently we are pushing it. And yeah, it is actually something more. It is more of a movement than a business. So that has been my entrepreneurial journey.
Wow, that's awesome. And I think one of the things I'm picking up from your account is the importance of relationships. You've been working with the same person since high school, and the importance
Yeah.
of perseverance. I'm sure high school probably will be what, 7 years, right? From now.
No, no, no.
How
I'm
many years ago?
actually I'm
How
actually
many
very
years ago
young.
was high
Hey.
school? Yeah, yeah, I can imagine you're very young. Generation Z, yes, I know you are. But I mean, how many years ago was high school? Like what, 5 years, 3 years?
Actually, three.
3 years
Yeah,
ago.
three
Wow,
years.
okay,
It was
cool, cool, good.
yeah.
Okay,
It was
that's great. He's
2018.
very young. But what, I'm not going to tell anybody your age, but I mean, I know that you're quite young, and I appreciate that.
Yeah.
One of the things I advocated in my book, one of my small books, is that if you're going to do something in life, you better do it early. If you're going to get married, you better get married early. If you're going to start a business or you're going to entrepreneurship, you start early. If you know that, if you know, once you know for sure that I'm going to do this, the earlier the better, because you have the time to make your mistakes. And Godswill has mentioned that yes, indeed, we did make a few mistakes in our journey. But you see, when you're young, it's easier to recover from those mistakes and then do it better. You have more time in life to do it better than if you start at 40 and 45. So even if you're late, that's fine. But I mean, it's always better to start early. So let me ask Godswill. I mean, what are the kind of challenges you faced in starting out so early? You've mentioned the issue of older people saying, "Oh, my, face your books." And these days, there's a joke that people used to have that in the early days they tell children to face their books. These days they tell children to face their football, because they realize that 90,000 pounds a week will probably not come from a university degree. So I mean, I want you to share with us more about what your challenges were starting out so early.
Um, the challenges we face starting up so early is also the same challenges relatively, not more specifically, the same challenges we face currently. While starting out, although both of us had family members that were already in business, they were mainly SMEs, right? They were mainly SMEs, and no one have developed something big or done something very big. So starting out, it's and coming into a now being on your own, understanding different things. It was quite challenging, but it was also quite exciting. We were like, yes, I want to do this. And we but firstly, we'll be walking into an office, and when I speak, I sound old. But when I walk into an office and someone sees me, it's like, okay, how old are you, my boy? And you're like, oh, back then I was like, I'm in my teenage age. And it's like, okay, it's a problem,
Wow.
and it's a problem being young one. Um, so how we accounted for that was to make sure that we know our stuff to the point. Like if you give us a question on what we are coming here to talk about, be very specific. We will answer you and we know everything. So when you
Yeah.
look at the youthfulness, it's actually irrelevant because we have what we presented to you something very mature, is something we have taught and have the knowledge to implement. So number
Wow.
two would be actually gaining trust and having access to some doors. And that one, it actually was a challenge. It was actually a fun challenge, I would say, per se, because I'm kind of like a person who would like to break down doors, like like break into rooms, down doors. And
Mm.
we went out. It it made us improve in our communication skills. It made us improve in a whole lot of areas. It made us even improve in ourselves. How we see things, how we vision things. It's not the way other people see. And it got us to be more open-minded and interculturally accepted at a very young age, which is something
Yeah.
I'm always grateful for. On top of that, I would like to say thank you to, if I may use the opportunity, thank my mentor, Mark Buwalda, because he's the person we actually we chased him. Like we chased him for some time. We called him, we chased him, we called him, we chased him, and he agreed. And through his mentorship, we've been able to, break into these rooms, break into these doors, and we gain some trust here and there. So that has been the challenges mainly for us. And okay, the outer challenges, the inner challenges is having belief in yourself. To say that
Yeah.
I can do this. Not seeing self doubt, and also being able to pick yourself out, because in the business world, I don't mainly. And here's how it is: people don't care whether you're young, they don't care whether you're black, they don't care whether you're white, they don't care whether you're old, they don't care whether you're male or female. They care whether what you bring to me is valuable, and if you
Yeah.
can do it right. So going in there and someone tells you, this is nonsense, I'm not buying it. It hits you. He used to get to us, he used to hit us. But through his mentorship, you get to say like, nah, man, this thing is actually a compliment. So what you should do rather is ask the customer, okay, how should I improve? So there is and that personal experience being previously, because because nowadays in our African families we are being, how would I say, pampered to a certain limit. It was very hard taking those insults, taking those no's, but now it's awesome, and we're grateful for that experience. So there has been a challenge that we've been facing at the team, yeah. And
Beautiful.
if I may also speak on
Beautiful.
if I'm al-
Go ahead.
if I may also speak on the business that I'm
Hmm.
currently in, Hyratica Insights. So Heretical Insights was it also have it also has a peculiar starting. So Deseto is a student of information systems at the University of Johannesburg. So and is a business analyst at the entrepreneurship ecosystem company. So while working there and studying at UJ, he came across so many things, and the exposure TEC was able to give him. And it was we're always very academic people, so we always try to research, etc. Studying what's going on, and he couldn't hold it anymore. He was very depressed with the that gap or that exists in digitalization in the continent, and that was like back in 2019, back in 2018, before we were even thinking about before
Hmm.
there was even a pandemic, or they need to digitalize at this rate as it is now. So it while doing that, we found a lot of opportunities that we can go into, and that's when we collided and like, okay, let's go into the space. Being in that space, given that is a people want to do things with people they know and trust, you know.
Hmm.
So being there to trust and to get people to know you, it's number one challenge. And the kind of people you're chasing are not people you market to on social media. Some of them, yes, but a majority of people, the decision makers
Yeah.
you chase, they'll make a decision. You really have to walk through the door. You really have to meet them. You really have to give them the call. You really have to speak to them
Yeah.
and make them understand this. Or else, or else they're so tough. They're like, I don't need this. My business is already going the way it's going. And
Mm.
also being able to get into some organizations, some associations. So also, why being young? Um, Mainly, and I would like to specify this problem. I don't know why it occurs, but it occurs. Being young is such of an issue when it comes to the black community. Sorry to say it, right? But it's the truth, and we
Okay.
have to fix that,
Yeah.
because majority of the white people that we have worked with didn't care whether we're young. They care whether we knew what we were doing and what we. But when I walk into,
Yeah. Mm.
even Nigerian, I worked into a Nigerian man's office here, and he's in his 50s, and I'm talking to him about data science and telling him, no, sir, but this is that and there is that. And he couldn't hear me. Like he couldn't even hear me once he heard my age.
Yeah.
It's like
Yeah.
it's like I don't it's like we just came here to
The
play,
age blocked
you know.
his ears.
Like,
Blocked his mind.
so there's that perception that when you're young, you have to learn from us, you know, and we know it. So and that is very
Mm.
wrong, because you have to understand that the world is changing and the rate of information is so the availability of information is so large that not everyone can know it all. One, two, probably what was previously. You don't know what is now. And so there has been the
Mhm.
challenge we've been going in our high school inside, and the third one will be putting together
Yeah.
the right team. It also comes back to being young, because you're going to meet someone with a PhD and you're telling them, I want you to do this for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and like, okay. Like, and so but we've been able to
Sorry about that. Just a minute. Back shortly. Okay. Wow, that's been an awesome one. That's been an awesome. All Right. Thank you. I just want to point out a few things you've said. You said a lot of things, so I want to just pick them out because I think they're quite important. Now, the first thing you said, I asked you about how you're overcoming I say the downsides of being young. And one of the first things you mentioned was the delivery of value. That means if I am able to do what I say I can do, if I'm able to do it one time, two times, three times, then at some point my age is no longer a question, right? At some point my age is no longer a question. And you also said that this age issue is mostly a problem with Black people, and that sometimes even when you are trying to deliver value or trying to express your capacity to deliver value, people have heard your age and blocked their minds. And that is very interesting. So I just let you continue on that. So I'd like you to tell us a bit more about what exactly Hyratica does, how you operate, and you mentioned that your business is not as much a social media business as much as it stays a walk-in where you need to talk with decision makers. So what exactly do you do for companies and governments, of course?
Okay, so Hyratica Insights is a full-fledged data consulting, analytics, and training firm. So basically, what we do is we help decision makers and organizations make the most and best use of their data. Um, Data for those who don't understand is information, you know. So it depends on on the level and type of client that you're working with, right? But let me just give you, because most organizations, in the South African markets that we operate in, is a very um, it, it's a very complex market because you have very people who are very advanced in data science at one end, or on the one end, and you have people who are not even started, who have not even noticed the importance of data science at the other hand. And you have this across the different business level, whether it's SMEs or big business. You have this big market. I mean, this extreme is in every level of the economy, and then you have the rest in between. So, but let me take for example those at the extreme, at the other extreme end of the line, who do not even understand on the importance of data science. What we first go in there is we consult with them. Firstly, and we consult with them to understand which level they are, the importance, or how do we go about the project, and what is the impact this will have on them, right? So mainly we do that in two ways. Firstly, it's pro bono consulting, and but
Okay.
the pro bono consulting is just to identify if there's a need for our services. You know,
Mm-hmm.
we are not we're not here to make it sell. We are to make it number. Our first thing is we are here to make an impact. Second thing is to make it sell. You know,
Mm-hmm.
so if there is no need or we cannot make any impact, we rather go home and do our homework and come back to you. You know,
Mm-hmm.
so if we do pro bono consulting, and then we show you and your team that okay, this is that, there is that, and you see like okay, we agree with this, then we go ahead to consult on developing a data strategy or a digital strategy for the company, right? Which we include what has to be done, why it has to be done, and how it has to be done to transform it digitally, right? Or to utilize your data. Because most organizations have data but don't even know what they're doing with data, or have the wrong data. And when you get in, it's like, but this is junk data. Why are you collecting this? So there is the first step. Second step will be in training their team, because uh, in the economy I play in, like, again, we have um actually in the whole population we have number one, a technological illiterate population. Number two, a data illiterate. Mainly the same thing, but technology is more broad. So that's why I'm giving a broad sense that it's even a bigger problem, because of a technological illiterate population, majority of the population is technologically illiterate. And then it makes it worse when it comes to specifically data literacy. So we develop a data literacy team with um, either data analytics or data science skills, depending on the kind of skills they will need to implement the strategy
Okay.
fully. And we work with them on some projects by what it involves analyzing etc to implement the strategy to a point where now we saw okay they can carry on, and why we do that is so that you don't have to call us back. We come there to change and transform. What we do is we create smart business
Yeah.
so that you are self-sufficient, with your data needs. Um,
Mm-hmm.
but also we also operate uh, on on different atmospheres. Some people are specific, you get there like we need data analytics for a project, and that is it. You get there like no, we need business intelligence monthly, and that is it. And some people are just so specific that they're even stubborn. I mean, which I was chasing Absa Bank, and I chased Absa Bank. I think even the chief investment
Okay.
officer right now at Absa Bank knows my name because I disturbed him so much, you know. And when Absa
Yeah.
is like we have a house in order, and Absa is so specific. They're so advanced that when they tell you what they really need specifically, you're shocked. They're like, okay, what we only need is two data analytics with 15 years experience. And you're like, okay. And like they have their house in order, so it depends on what the client wants. That's
Yeah.
the best point going to with this, and at the level they are, and we take it from there.
Okay, great. I'm particularly interested in an aspect that you have mentioned, which is being able to evaluate a company and discover their data needs. That means that they don't even know what they want. So, do you have an example of when you've done that, or maybe you want to share with us how you would go doing that? You see a company that is a fresh company, and you see what their potential is. You're able to identify these are the data elements that they can take advantage of. This is how they translate data to money. I mean, how do you do that kind of evaluation?
Okay, so I will not give an example of a company. Rather, I will
Okay.
brief you. I will kind of walk through the process. So let me just take for an example logistics, not logistics, let me say manufacturing, because manufacturing is more manufacturing company. Let's say we manufacture stationery, you know. So or so basically, when it comes to the effective utilization of it, there's three areas that mainly um the school of thought and data science in business I've identified, which is one, um um, making data-driven decision. Second, automating your processes, and third, monetizing on your data. So when it comes to manufacturing house, every with your supply chain from sourcing your raw materials, delivering it to manufacturing, all of those generate data, you know, or have the potential to generate data. If it doesn't, then um, sorry, all of those, let me rephrase that. All of those generate data, but not everyone collects those data. That's what I meant before by or.
Mhm.
So we collect, if, for example, if you need to collect those data, we analyze your whole operation in the company, we analyze the skills your team have, we analyze everything you do. And then we go down and say, okay, we have data sets. What data sets do you have? Um, how are you doing this? If you have no data sets, okay, do you have to buy data? Do you have to do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5? What is the budget? Etc. And we work closely. We also work closely in hand with a member of either a senior executive member or a medium executive member. Mostly, if it's a medium company, we often work with their chief information officer or the chief marketing officer, because those are the two guys that mainly will give us what we need and understand us. IT guys are proud, so when you go to IT guys, they're like, hey, my guy, I 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So we kind of don't like them. So when it comes, number one, what we do after evaluating where you are after evaluating where you are in utilizing data, we analyze, I mean, in collecting data and utilizing data and everything you're doing, we analyze whether you have those data sets in silos, right? So if you have those data sets in silos, Remember, those that analyzing develops a data strategy. Now we come back and we merge those data sets into one data set. We synchronize all the data so it can be used amongst different departments. One thing I would like to point out is most firms that we have worked with or observed do have data, do collect data, right? But the data are in silos in departments. And often in firms, people don't know from the outside, but there is tough wars going on. You know, you hear the marketing guy wants to be the best. The IT guy wants to be the best. So all these tough wars sometimes other elements lead to lead to you know it's data being siloed. So when we synchronize it, we're able to understand what the different departments have, and then the whole picture of the company comes out, and we can analyze the data to go forward. So there is um, a kind of simple process on how we go about it. However, I would like to say that I'm not the technical guy in the business. So our chief data officer, who is my best friend and my business partner, is the very technical guy. So I am in business development. So, but according to my understanding, there is that. There is that.
Great, great. That's quite impressive, and it looks good. And I think it makes a lot of sense for emerging markets where so much is going on, but we need to really articulate how we are collecting data from our customers, from our environments, in order to advance the business. So let me ask you about generally the digital space in Africa.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think about? I mean, we just came out of COVID-19, and everybody now knows about Zoom. Everybody now knows about platforms and the likes of digital transformation of the digital on businesses in Africa, on governments in Africa. What do you think about that whole mix? What have we? How far to the what the other opportunities that we have? Go ahead.
Please repeat the question. I lost you for 30 seconds. Please repeat the
Okay,
question. I lost you for like 30
my
seconds.
apologies. So I was asking. All right. So I'm asking about what your views are on the digital space in Africa, particularly for African governments, African businesses. What are the opportunities that are there? How far have we come, especially given the effects of COVID-19 that have pushed everybody towards the digital space? So what do you think about that space right now?
Okay. I will go over this
Go
in a
ahead.
unique way.
Okay.
So I will go over it with the governance and business and just the whole Africa society together. And before I start speaking about Africa digitalization and the African government efforts, etc. I would like to pay respect to His Excellency Kenneth Kaunda, the president of Zambia who just passed away. Was a profound leader, an example of progress and good leadership in the continent. So let me just pay that respect to him because without him, organizations like the African Union, we are advocating now for African interests, will not be present. So um, there is that. With that being said, so the subject of data in Africa is something quite broad, right? So let me just create a context here. Um, the Africa the data transformation or digital transformation, I'm sorry, digital transformation in Africa or the context of digital transformation in Africa is it's for me of according to my studies it shows itself plays itself out in three different ways. So one is innovatively utilizing digital technology to leapfrog the continent into 4 IR and achieve the AU Agenda 2063. You know, there is one. Second is understanding the challenges that will exist to do that, and three, accounting for those challenges. Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. Go ahead, please.
Okay, and account for the challenges that will hinder us from achieving that. So, um, that is the context. Now, with that being said, we we cannot afford, and I've heard many ministers and presidents and everyone say this, but really we cannot afford to let this opportunity pass us, as a continent. So one of my professors, I will not say his name yet, at the University of South Africa, wrote a book titled The Decolonization of Africa. I mean, the
Okay.
recolonization of Africa. And
Yeah.
where he was pointing to is data, and it's
So you
like
have already
with
said
the
his name
data we generate, the data we generate,
by
even Professor
saying the name of his
Mawala.
book, actually. Okay.
No, I don't want to make him famous. I want to say his name.
Okay.
So
Okay, go
even
ahead.
Professor Mawala, the vice chancellor of UJ, specifies something like that in his book, Closing the Gap. Every data we generating, almost every data, the percentage says 98%, but um, I question the methodology of finding that percentage, So but I'll go with it. The IDT says 98% of the data we generate are actually um, hosted outside of the continent. So when me and you make conversations or we make a call over WhatsApp, it hosted in San Francisco. Same thing with Google. Same thing with many
Yeah.
of these technologies we utilize at a large scale for our daily communications or internet use every single day. So he's saying that if we don't account for that, basically what they are saying, if we don't account for that and bring it and and localize the collection and usage of data and keep our data set in on the continent, we be recolonized. And for example, we saw. Sorry, I'm starting from this end. You get a few picture where I'm going to. You saw what happened with the African Union Parliament in China. Where they offered free construction and then tap data. So, however, I'm still very skeptical reading data science books written by professors because the professors they're very critical and sometimes they are very patriotic towards their cause. So I've also read balanced views, but there is the need of why we have to digitalize in Africa, right? And I think all the different governments are seeing this, right? So for I think all the different governments are seeing this. So for example, the African Union, they've just recently published, not like last year, published their African Union digital strategy, which is I recommend the one. They're very robust, very also very ambitious, but I would dare them to achieve that. And the reason why I'm saying that is let's speak the truth to ourselves. Our continent we have very good plans. I mean, we have very, very, very good plans. I'm currently studying the Nigerian data strategy, published by the Nigerian Ministry of Information and Digital Economy. It's it's brilliant, but I dare them to implement that. It's you even see 5% of that being implemented. Why? I don't want to get into those reasons here. And if we let that go on, um, that is repeating the mistakes of our ancestors. Why? Because you cannot give every like data is the new oil now.
Yeah.
It's everything. Information has always been important, but now that it's so easily collected and stored in different countries, different geographical location, and utilized by different companies under different um um political order, it's scary to even think about it. So,
Okay, let me
but
interject a bit on that. Let me interject a bit on
okay.
that. Do you think that data residency is still important in this, will I say, the current economy where we're talking about the global economy, so to speak, a global village. People are talking about all sorts of mergers across political lines. Is where data is hosted, is this still very important?
There's currently two main school of thought on that. The one school of thought says no, it doesn't matter, and the other, obviously, the multinationals and the business people voice that a lot. But the other school of thought is it does matter, and I advocate for the second school of thought.
Okay.
Why is that? Because and most people would say it doesn't matter. My observations, though, is my opinion, say in two ways. One, they don't understand the importance of data or the value of data. They don't understand the
Mhm.
power of data, what data can do. Two, they want to commercialize on it or own it, or they're the ones owning it. So they're mainly the ones advocating for that. The second school of thought that I advocate for, data has to be owned because if I own, okay, for example, if I own land, right, you can, like, it has to be owned by, it's mine. My information is mine. It's a human right to privacy, It's a human right to have privacy. It's my information. It's me. So if it's being heard, let it at least be heard by my government, by my jurisdiction. Whatever I do outside of that can be heard by another government. I agree. But let it be heard by people I can hold accountable. I mean, I'm in South Africa here. How can I hold a company in China? So, for example, wow, if they correct my data, how can I hold them accountable? You know, but if Altron here um, uses my data in an inefficient way, I can hold them accountable. And another thing is also kudos to the South African government on this with the Poppy Act that has just been in place from the 1st of July, some few days back. It's been ahead for 8 years, but finally we got it. it. We have to understand what people are doing with our data, because if people have your data, they can tweak you, they can fool you, um, they can basically you will not be able to make decisions for yourself, especially when it's mixed with neuroscience, and they're doing neuroscience marketing. You won't be able to understand, but they were using your human nature to play against you. So where it's heard, it matters, because if it's heard in your own country, your own jurisdiction, you have a bit of influence over it, and you can advocate or push for a law to govern that. But if it's being heard by someone outside, it's hard. It's really hard, especially if it's a powerful organization like Huawei, or and they are in a country where um, um, basically whatever evil you do outside of their country cannot be held accountable for it in the country. So I advocate for data to be heard within our jurisdiction. Everything.
Okay. Wow. Okay. Wow, that is quite interesting. This is the political side of the technology, and incidentally, if was it last week when the Nigerian government banned Twitter essentially because of a tweet that was okay. Maybe that I'm not treading very cautiously, saying things very carefully, but I mean, essentially, it was because of a tweet that was a response that Twitter made to the tweet by the president, and the questions are now rising from other countries like India, like Russia, who are questioning the power they have over social media giants. And I guess this extends the philosophy, the thought that you are expressing here, that the data that is generated by my nation should be under the control of my nation, which makes sense to some extent. Then the other question that someone might ask is, can I own the data even though it's not resident in my jurisdiction? Because maybe I don't have confidence that my infrastructure can give me the kind of durability and reliability that I want to hold my data in probably something like a public cloud, for example. Now, are there ways, are there laws that enable the government to have control or ownership of the data, or for me as an individual or as a company to have ownership of the data without it necessarily being hosted by me, assuming somebody else is better at guaranteeing durability, availability, and so on? What do you think about that?
So thank you for that. Now, okay, it depends. Really, it does depend. It depends on the country. It also depends on if you know, whether they collect what if they collect data from you. So I there was a case, and it's now very popular, of Cambridge Analytica influencing
Yeah.
the U.S. elections, and there was a professor, a, an IT professor. I don't recall his name very well. That he sued Cambridge Analytica in the UK. He was in the US, and he sued them in the UK with a UK lawyer to
Mhm.
give him back the data points they have on him, and he was
Yep.
successful on that. But it was a battle, you know. So but you can go to a country like China and sue them and sue a company and
Yeah.
just give back a
Yeah.
you can't do that. But it depends on the place, and it depends also if you know if you have that date on you. Because some you wouldn't even know about that. And another thing is also depends on the home country. So currently, one of the weaknesses we have in Africa as a whole is a framework about on regulating the use of on regulating digitalization as a whole. So in the continent, only 8 countries have actually started thinking about digitalization out of 56. And I say
Mm.
56 because if Somaliland can host an election, have its own police, have its own borders, have its own economy, is a country, whether it is recognized by international community or not. So the 56 countries in the continent, only 8: South Africa, Kenya, Nigeria, Ethiopia, Rwanda, Egypt, Algeria, Ghana. Only 8 are thinking about how do we regulate this, how will we utilize this. So if you are in a country like Senegal, and they're not even thinking about, and they don't record, like, and they're not regulating it, then you obviously cannot hold anyone accountable for it, because your jurisdiction does not hold. Also, so it depends on those elements, but mainly yes, you can. Yes, you can, because governments now, especially in the EU, governments are now putting more laws to um, give back ownership of data into to the producers of those data points. So mostly you can, but it depends on where you are and other factors that play out in there. And another thing, sorry, that I want to comment on is the problem you
Yeah.
raised. So in all of the digital strategy, or the study report conducted that I've been through on the continent, from SA to currently where I'm going to Nigeria and the AU, infrastructure has always been a big problem, you know, and it's it's a pity when because we're so behind. But however, now is opportunity to leapfrog. you
Yeah.
know. So the good thing about digitalization is the effect, the rate at which you can innovate, and come up with new technology to solve problems is very quick, it's very fast, especially with
Hmm.
using data, right? So when you collect so much data, you can be able to find ways on how to solve those problems easily, which is how government, what the African Union have actually advocated for, and they're pushing some of those agendas with Smart Africa, which is a different organization, but majority of the governments are there, and also the African Union um, Commission on Information Technology. So
Hmm.
yeah, I believe that their efforts, the way I'm looking at this, because now the African Union has matured. It's not just the old
Okay. So I think we're going to take a breather, just a minute, and while we wait for Godswill. All right, welcome back.
Thank,
All right,
thank you
so
for that.
Godswill, yes, and you've said a lot about the technical side and the, well, I say the legal side. So yes, we can control, or we can have ownership, have control over our data, even if it's hosted somewhere else, as long as we have the regulatory backing to be able to make a claim, so to speak, when there is a dispute. That's what I hear you saying, and that's wonderful. I want us to, because of time, dig a little deeper into Hyratica Insights and what you do. I'd like you to tell us a bit about, if that's fine, some of the tools that you use in delivering value to organizations and governments that you tell us
Okay.
a bit about that.
So
Yeah.
okay. So the tools we use is Python, R Studios, SQL, Tably, some of the other system applications we use, Power BI, Click, and Outtrace. Excuse me. But we focus mainly and we specialize mainly on Python. You know, why is that? Because Python allows you to, utilize many libraries and many tools within it. For example, if you want to integrate graphics, it's very easy on Python than on other
Mm-hmm. All
software
right.
applications. But however, every data analytics firm has to know and utilize SQL because it's the founding language of data analytics and data
Yes.
science. So we also specialize on that. Yeah, that is what the tools we utilize in
Okay. Great.
Hyratica Insights.
So the tools of the trade, the tough ones. Many people that are some people that are listening to this may never or may not even know what Python is. It's not a snake. Python is not a snake. Python is a programming language. So and so is the R Studio and so forth. All right, thank you for that. So as we grind to a halt in this session, we've been speaking to Godswill Iwenofu. I hope I got the pronunciation right. I know I'm very close to it. It's like 2 states away from my state, so I should get it. So, and we've talked about the your history as an entrepreneur, as a very young entrepreneur, starting out your journey in high school. We've also talked about what Hyratica Insights does for organizations. We've also talked about what the challenges you had were in growing your business as a young person, the challenge of being looked at as being young, and the fact that you try to overcome that by delivering value. And we've talked about Africa and digitalization in Africa, the challenges there, and the issue of regulation and data residency, data ownership. And I think you are a very knowledgeable person in these areas. Having this kind of conversation with you tells me that. So I want to talk a little more about your business. Do you at this stage, do you think that there's a demand for what you do, or are you on the other side trying to push it hard at this stage that we are as a continent? Please tell me about that.
Okay. Um, there is a need for what we do, right? There is a need for it. There is a demand for it. However, not in the sense that we can. So there's a demand for it in terms of the skills are demanded, but the skills are required in-house. People don't want to outsource, right? And also, like I said before, the South African market is a very complex market. So there is one half of the section of it. For example, the financial sector, there's a huge demand in that sector, but the demand is for skills and people that can come in-house to their team, not for companies that they can outsource to. Um, Now other in other sectors, there is not even an understanding of the need of data science. So we still South Africa, like I said before, a majority of population are data illiterate. So we still have to make people understand what data science is, the importance of data science, and how to utilize it in firms. But however, there's a need for it, and we have to expose them to that need, or we have to draw their attention to that need. Some people are waking up to it. More and more people, uh, mainly due to the pandemic, are waking up to the need for data science and digitalization in their firm. However, they don't understand how to go about it. So when you're going in there and you're telling them which level are you, you're talking about data strategy, it's the language they don't understand. So if we first have to educate them a bit and calm down and say, okay, what do you really want to achieve? What's your objective? They'll tell you, no, my business is dying. What, I want to move you. What? And mainly everything they will say, they only come to 2 points. I want to actually 1 point to be very specific. I want to digitalize my business. And we go back and we're like, okay, this is what you want, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and go about it. So I've answered your question different segment to make it straight out into a point from one, that is demand in sectors. It depends on the sectors because the market is a very complex market. Two, there is there's a need for it in other sectors, but there is no understanding of the need or acknowledgement of the need for it. So you have to first educate them, then you can sell to them. So
Okay.
there is, yeah.
Great. So essentially, the market is variegated, right? You have those who you have to really teach what they even. I mean, it's like expose their own need to them, and we have those who have
Yes,
seen
yes,
their
yes.
need, and they're calling you to come. That's beautiful. So as we round up today, I'd like you to really take 1 minute and inspire that next 15-year-old, 16-year-old, 70-year-old who wants to start out and he thinks he's too young or he has self-doubts, imposter syndrome. I learned that recently, and so on and so forth. Inspire somebody to get going today.
So I'll just start by saying this, right? I probably will take 2 minutes. One, things are changing very quickly, you know. Um, don't just rely on, don't doubt yourself. Don't say you can't do it. Don't, because you can do it. And being able to do something requires based on the knowledge or the wisdom you have around the subject. So instead of saying you can't do it, go and learn how to do it. Go and get a client, because when you get a client and that guy is called, and the client is calling you every single week, you get it done. You learn how to get it done.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that is one. Two, don't rule out mentorship. Run after
Yeah.
mentors. Search for mentors. I am where I am today because of my mentors. And I'm going at a higher rate to where I really want to go. So search for mentors and when you put together a team, make sure you're the oldest person. I mean, make sure you're the youngest person in the team. Make sure when you're very young, make sure you're the youngest person. Because when you walk into an office and you have a 35-year-old with you as your, as your staff member, and you know what you're saying, you've already won that deal. So there is that. That is all I have to say. And on top of that, to understand that this continent has a catastrophe facing it if we don't if rapid economic growth does not occur in the next 30 years. We're gonna double in the next 30 years. We need people like you, we need entrepreneurs to get moving, and you're a part of the solution. If you don't move, then there's a catastrophe that's facing us. So we have to get it done. And yeah, the only time you have is now. Start moving. Start moving. Thank you.
Beautiful. Thank you very much, Godswill Iwenofu. I've been talking to Godswill, and he's educated us on his journey and on his work with Hyratica Insights, with data in Africa, on the issues of digitalization in Africa. And of course, I like that inspirational note on which we're ending today, where he's saying, look, if you have an idea, go for it. Try to fortify yourself with older people. Yes, you can, but more importantly, fortify yourself with knowledge. It's been me with Godswill Iwenofu, and thank you for joining us today. My name is Kenneth Giri, and do share this video if it makes any meaning to you, and do subscribe to our channel.